It's time to pull up a stool and grab your spot at the bar. The stadiums are dark, the scoreboards are off, and the final whistle has long since blown. But in here, the lights stay on. Welcome to the ETB Lounge on the Empty the Bench Network. This is your official post-game nightcap, where we break down the biggest hits, pour one out for the heartbreaks, and dive into the stories that linger long after the clock hits zero. Whether you're here for sharp analysis or one last round of sports talk with the best fans in the game, you've come to the right place. The games are over, and the conversation is just getting started. Well, my friends, we are witnessing a Sunday night reckoning across the sporting landscape. Starting in New York, where David Stearns finally pulled the plug on Carlos Mendoza, firing the Mets skipper after a brutal June collapse that took the $300 million payroll and by team chemistry or Bayou victories. Welcome inside the ETB Lounge, folks, for this Sunday night. Here on ETB, I'm Callan McClurg, and tonight the bar is fully stocked with absolute chaos. Yeah, the summer heat was intense. The sports world just decided to set the entire house on fire. On the flip side, out in Anaheim, California, Artie Moreno has thrown out Perry Manassian and permanently slamming the competitive window shut on the post-Ohtani-era Angels and leaving Mike Trout stranded in a minor league graveyard. It's not just the front offices throwing chairs today. The looming shadow of baseball's lockout is growing darker by the minute as RSNs continue to collapse in the league and the players dig into the trenches. Over in the NFL, Brandon Ayuk's contract drama with the 49ers has reached the toxic boiling point, while Brendan Sorsby's has now found out the hard way that even international red tape will completely block you from taking your talents up to the CFL. And that wasn't enough, though, gang. The NBA completely shattered league parity overnight with blockbuster trades involving Giannis Antetokounmpo and LaMelo Ball. And also across the continent, the World Cup has now reached the round of 32 and kicks off their highest stakes elimination tournament we have ever seen. At the bar tonight, as always, is Nick DiMartino alongside our fellow correspondents, Ben Cruz, David Weightman, and Zain Bando on this Sunday evening, June 28th, 2026. Mr. DiMartino, welcome back. Good to see you, my man. How are we doing today?
All right. How are you doing?
We're doing good, my man. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing a lot better than the Mets are. I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Oh, we will be. Don't worry. Ben Cruz joining us out there in the upper Northeast from good old Beantown. Ben, how are we doing tonight, my man? Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm doing well. Sox beat the Yankees already. 3-8. Well, they're playing right now, but they've won the last 3 games, so that's awesome to see, despite the team being in shambles. World Cup has been great. Really looking forward to how U.S. does in their first game on Wednesday. Hopefully I can get out maybe to a watch party or something. But it should be a lot of fun. And this week obviously has a lot. NBA free agency, NHL free agency is going to be coming up. So it's a busy time of year. And I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, so much going on, folks. We also bring on our good man, David Weightman joining us as well from South Philadelphia, born and raised. Mr. Weightman, a lot going on. My man, how's it going tonight? Thanks for being here.
Doing good. Just another week coming up. Like I said, summertime baseball. Like I said, watching the Red Sox pitching a no-no right now. All's well tonight in Philadelphia.
All's well, it ends well. And just back from vacation, our good man, Zain Bando, checking in as well. Zain, welcome back from vacay. Good to see you, my man. How's it going today?
Good. It's been a pretty long weekend. I was up for about 15, 16 hours yesterday with a long day of travel, but good to be back. It was nice to have a week off. Hadn't been to Florida in a couple of years, at least not something that wasn't related to work. Thankfully, this was not work-related at all, and it was nice to get a little break, but good to be here and glad to jump on. And by the way, for those of you who follow the Sunday programming religiously, which I'm sure some of you loyalists out there, out of the 93 people that are in here, do. I am on because there is no Ozizi part 2. It will resume this week following, which should be a pretty interesting 4th of July. So looking forward to everything that we're going to be discussing tonight, and Callan and Nick D and the entire panel, I guess. Thanks for having me on, as always.
Yeah, of course. Zain, are you like in hiding right now?
No, I'm not in.
I mean, like,
It's
you're like
just
sitting in the dark.
it's
Are you in the attic?
just unfortunately dark in the room that I'm in at the moment.
You're like in the storage closet.
No.
Nick,
I
maybe
am luckily not. But thanks for the observation. Sometimes I have to be mysterious. Hopefully, I'm not too mysterious though.
that sun was too bright, I guess, down in Florida.
The
Maybe.
master of mystic arts.
Yeah, you got to make up for it.
Exactly. With that in mind, though, folks, of course, you can follow the show and the network across social media on all platforms, including Twitter, IG, and TikTok at the ETB Lounge or at ETB Network. And more importantly, again, folks, we are already nearing the 3,000 watch hour mark on YouTube. So please go like and subscribe. Ring that notification bell at youtube.com/ETB Network, where, again, you can catch all the live shows now. Again, all 17 shows now are going to be airing live or do air live now here on the network YouTube channel. So please go do so. youtube.com/ETB Network is where you can go and find all of our content here across the Empty the Bench network. We're with you folks here until 8 o'clock Pacific time, 11 o'clock Eastern. We'll kick things off, though, as Nick kind of alluded to, though, regarding David Stearns and the Mets front office officially pulling the plug finally on manager Carlos Mendoza after a lengthy, brutal, uninspired June swoon that saw the team drop completely out of the NL wildcard race entirely, despite the payroll being near $310 million. The Mets have failed to find identity and rank in the bottom third of the National League in situational hitting with runners in scoring position, and also bad blown leads by the bullpen. Entering today, the Mets were 36-46 and 12.5 games out of the NL East lead and 6.5 games out of the last wild card spot held by San Diego. And the Mets were also 7-17 in the month of June, including 3 separate series sweeps at the hands of divisional rivals. Nick D, this is your ball club, my man. I know that it's been very much a difficult year for the Mets, but I don't know if people really know how bad it's been, though. But what can you tell us, though, regarding your thoughts on finally seeing Mendoza let go after a dismal season so far in Queens?
Well, I think we all know how it's going. I mean, the Mets, if the Mets have a bad season, we're going to hear about it. You might not hear about it out in San Diego, but we certainly hear about it in the Northeast. My thoughts on Mendoza is I'm okay with them firing Mendoza because sometimes that's what is needed to like revamp a season a little bit. Like I think there's some truth to that. Like we see it in college football a lot with interim head coaches, and for some inexplicable reason, they fired the head coach, bring in the interim head coach, and like the team takes on a whole new life.
Yeah,
that happens sometimes. Although, and I think, and at this point, the Mets have nothing more to lose, so they might as well fire Carlos Mendoza. But at the same time, I also don't think the losing is really necessarily that attributable to Carlos Mendoza as much as it is to David Stearns, because David Stearns is the reason. David Stearns is the guy who constructed the whole roster. And the reason the Mets are playing bad has far more to do with the players individually than it does with Carlos Mendoza managing the team. So I'm okay with this move. I'm just saying I think David Stearns deserves a lot more blame.
Ben, I think Nick D's right, though, that in a way you could say it's the manager and the roster, but at the end of the day, who's the person who builds the roster? It's the team GM. The manager just has to go out there and put out a lineup card 1 through 9 plus a DH and then have a starting pitcher out there. And it's not solely, I think that Nick D's right, that it's not solely Mendoza's fault, but how this roster was built, though, especially when they lost Pete Alonso, they give Soto that big money contract. And, I mean, inexplicably, again, that game that they had in that doubleheader with the Cubs, where they had 6 errors in one game, and every infield spot made at least 1 error in that ball game. And that I think it was a bad pay for Marcus Semien, who's been always, injured at some point. I think he's lost a step, though, in that they just really did not do a lot to fortify the roster. But I also wanted to point out, guys, and Nick D might be able to back me up here per some research I did. Mendoza now becomes the 4th different Mets manager since 2018, including Callaway, Rojas, and Showalter, to be thrown out of the door or thrown out as the manager within the last 7 to 8 years, roughly, of the last couple of years, though. So, Ben, reaction, though, I'd say to the firing of Mendoza, but also, does David Stearns, though, deserve more blame than Carlos Mendoza in your mind? I think so.
The firing was a little bit too late. I thought that they should have done it right around when the Phillies fired Rob Thompson, probably late May, I'd say. And I think, there is some blame for some of it, but I think it's more on David Stern. I think he was the one that created the team. They moved on, obviously, from kind of their core guys, which, granted, sometimes you got to do. But you moved on from Alonso, which, of course, was one of your top home run hitters. And you definitely probably could have allocated your funds better with that. You probably still could be able to keep Pete. And, I don't know about everybody, but at least, of course, unfortunately, Diaz obviously is hurt. But, I think him and Diaz are kind of the main two culprit guys. And, of course, Nimmo for Simeon, it's kind of whatever. I mean, Robert obviously was decent. But, I think Stearns is really like the guy. He reminds me actually of Craig Breslow a lot, from the Red Sox. Kind of a guy that is trying to kind of do it his way, more on like a smaller market type of allocating for a bigger market type of team. And it's not leading to results. It's a lot about run prevention. And in this day and age of baseball, you cannot live with that. You're going to have to bank on your pitching to do a lot. And the Mets, too, with their pitching is heavily underperformed at times too. So that's just kind of how I feel. I think Cohen said today on like Twitter or something, he might speak out about, what's kind of going on with the team. But like, really, what's that going to do? It's really just comes down to most of the time the playing on the field. And I think it's more of who puts it on the field and the guys that are playing on the field.
David, I think Ben makes a good point that if you're a Mets fan, I think you would have loved to do a copy paste of what the Phillies did, and you saw it firsthand with them throwing out Rob Thompson early in the year, though, but not right now, where it feels like the season is all but lost. And again, 10 games under 500, falling like a stone in the ocean to the bottom of the NL East, all the way out to where the wild card is at right now. That I think if you're a Mets fan, you want to also kind of say, I think, Stearns, where is your sense of urgency to save the ship from sinking right now? And I think that they should have done this, earlier in the season, cut the cord, move on, bring in somebody else to be the interim skipper, which again is former Padre manager Andy Green. But David, your reaction to the firing, and again, I think that we all agree here. Does David Stearns deserve more of the blame than Carlos Mendoza?
He deserves about 80 to 90% of the blame. He's the one who put, like you said, got rid of guys, wanted to put his fingerprints on the team. Simeon, Robert, Freddie Peralta, that deal, like you said, and then thought maybe he was going to sign long term. It seems like that's not going to happen, so they're going to have to flip him. I mean, it's just anything that could go bad there has gone bad. Now it got even weird this weekend, where some fan wrote "Fire Stearns" on a French fries box, and they tossed him from the game.
That's crazy.
That's so bad.
And so that is more bad PR for the Mets. So, yeah, this is all uncertain. And Stearns is still like almost like defiant, like, well, this, and we're still a good team. It's like he's trying to save his job. What Cohen's gonna have to do, probably after the All-Star break or maybe before that, is now you're gonna have to flip guys and get prospects. Peralta, Luke Weaver's had a great year this year in the bullpen for the Mets. Minter's a free agent, former Brave. Get who you can get rid of. Get prospects in return, because you lost 2 in the Peralta deal. Now you have to, it's just a bad season for New York. Anything that could go bad has gone bad.
I said that exact same thing, James Dolan treatment, because that sounds very much like a James Dolan thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, my goodness. I mean, I actually saw the video and I was like a little peeved, like, come on, man. Like, like the season's like already basically like in the rearview mirror. You're worrying about the NFL and the Knicks defending their NBA title right now if you're a Mets fan. Like, I mean, at this rate, I mean, that is pretty bad. But Zain, maybe how about your thoughts here again? Carlos Mendoza fired over the course of the weekend, and before the weekend hit, though, by the Mets again after a dismal start to the season. But I think we all agree, as I already said, though, that this is more of a David Stearns problem more than it is a Carlos Mendoza or manager problem on the field.
Yeah, I mean, are we even surprised? I mean, the videos have been coming out in droves about how disappointed the fan base is with that team, and I can only imagine how hard it is to be a Met fan, because it just seems completely miserable. And what the Cubs did to them was certainly one of the final straws, and it's going to be a long rest of the year. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Again, folks, that was the big story to kick off the lounge trip Sunday night once more. Again, David Stearns finally had seen enough, reporting the firing of Carlos Mendoza in the afternoon hours on Friday, leading into the weekend. Again, the Mets currently entering today were 36-46. and we're 12.5 back of the NL East lead with the Braves leading the division and 6.5 games out of the final wild card spot. Nick D, I've wondered this question, though, before we move on here and talk about another firing in baseball. Just for the simple fact right now of where we stand with this lockout pending right now on the horizon, could you at all see David Stearns being one and done in New York as the GM after this season concludes?
Well, he should be. I mean, look, if you're going to fire, I said this on MTGP, but professional sports is one of the only jobs where you can get fired for mistakes that your boss makes. And that's kind of what happened to Mendoza. And I don't think anybody can seriously argue that Mendoza is more to blame than David Stearns is. Even if you're in doubt, David Stearns is the GM. He's above the head. He's above the manager. So even if you're in doubt, David Stearns is going to have to go if you're going to fire Carlos Mendoza. I mean, the mess was mostly created by David Stearns. I don't think anybody is seriously arguing that Mendoza mismanaging the team is the reason they're losing. So it would be really ridiculous if he weren't fired. I just don't see a world in which that he doesn't get fired. Like, I just don't see how that. I mean, I can see him not getting fired, but I don't see how it would make sense. The fact that there's a lockout coming up, I mean, I don't think that changes anything. Like, he still should be fired. Like, why would that change anything? That's my question.
Yeah. Ben, your thoughts. David Stearns perhaps one and done despite the lockout looming down the horizon?
I don't think they're gonna fire him right away. I think, they're gonna have to wait it out a little bit. I think Steve Cohen still backs him up quite a bit. I think, he kind of looks at it in a way of like it's a year in which things, of course, going to work out, but we tried, right? They tried to bring these pieces in, and some of these pieces just weren't, whether they were hurt. They at least try to bring some guys in. I'm like Breslow, who didn't really do a whole lot. And then obviously Brendan Contreras and a couple other pieces. But the lockout's obviously coming in, after this year. And then obviously whenever baseball's back, I think it's going to be his, make or break year.
David, what do you think here about David Stearns' future? I mean, I think Ben made another good point, though, kind of that Stearns had all the success, though, but again, with not a lot of resources at his disposal, with him being with the Brewers and the success that he had there with division titles, playoff runs to the NLCS, and never getting back to the World Series. You make that jump, though, to a marketplace like New York, who's got all the resources, but it doesn't pan out, though. I still wonder, though, David, your thoughts here. Could he be one and done after this season concludes with the Mets? Nope, David Stearns. Difficult. I mean, you know what?
Perfect timing.
Yeah, perfect timing, exactly. Zain, how about your thoughts here when it comes to maybe the potentialness of David Stearns being let go after 1 year?
I mean, this is probably as low as you could possibly get. Usually I'm a guy that says give, GMs and coaches another year, but the only way you can go is up. And I think the easiest thing to do is clean house and figure out, what a 2027 or even 28 season looks like if Major League Baseball does have a partial lockout that's going to impact not just every franchise, but also the Mets, of course. So I think whatever decision is made managerially or administratively, I think the fans are going to be disappointed one way or another, but that's the nature of the business.
You okay there, Zain?
Yeah, I mean, who knows what'll happen here?
Did you not hear anything I said? Or do I have to repeat it?
No, you're good. It just looked like you dropped.
No,
Robots are taking over the show.
It's like your witness protection. It's like,
Jeez, yeah, I don't know. It didn't break up on my end, so I don't know.
yeah, I could hear you. It was just a visual.
Okay.
It looks like you're. It looks like
David,
you're.
what?
I was gonna say it looks like he's like the leader of a country that just got like that just got like overthrown and has to go into hiding.
Yeah.
I was going to say witness protection or solitary confinement.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Oh, man. David, how about your thoughts, though? Do you see this going anywhere with Stearns maybe being one and done with the Mets?
I think a lot of general managers after this year, no matter what, are going to get fired. I have about 5 names in my head that I could see being fired. There's already been 1. I think there's 4 more on the way.
Ooh.
I mean,
tease.
no, I can tell you right now.
Who do you think?
The Mets. I think Boston. I think, depending on what happens in the playoffs, Philadelphia, Dombrowski, this run it back thing, if it blows up in their face again, I think he's gone. I wouldn't be surprised if also in San Francisco.
Oh.
That's another dumpster fire.
You know what? I think all those might actually be where I would say. I mean, I was reluctant to say A.J. Preller, but they just gave him a contract extension. And what I've been reading with the tea leaves, that with the sale coming on Wednesday being official to the new ownership group, he's getting the green light to spend more money come the trade deadline again for the Padre roster, and they need a lot of help, that's for sure. But I think, though, Ben, I'll go to you, though, on those names, though, that David mentioned. Could you perhaps see all those GMs, as he mentioned, between the Sox, Philadelphia, if they don't win the World Series? Obviously, the Giants have a lot of problems right now on and off the fields of play, though. But could all those GMs, though, alongside David Stearns, maybe on their way out when the season concludes?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, me and David have talked about the Phillies a lot, and obviously in hitting for the cycle. And, I've basically been saying, that this is kind of their year, because between the lockout, between a lot of their guys kind of being – their core being at the older stage of things, it's all about what's next, right? And, I'm not really big into – well, I don't really know much about the Phillies farm system, but,
Not good.
I haven't really heard many things about a lot of guys down there, so my attention is probably not the best. But, the Giants, obviously, they've been massive free fall. The Sox, I do think, are probably going to move on from Breslow at the end of this year, probably before even the playoffs. This team is still being the 3 games of the Yankees is awesome and fun. That's more of a mirage. The Yankees obviously are beaten up, even though it's great to beat on them. The Sox just lost 2 or 3 of the Rockies, which is the one of them seen in baseball. So, Breslow will be gone probably early September, and we'll see in terms of what they do in terms of moving pieces. And then you talked about somebody else as well too. The Mets. Yeah, I mean Mets as well too. Possibly, they obviously will have to kind of see what their options are, but at least kind of I think give this at least with Stearns, this manager, this like interim manager, a little bit of leeway, and then just kind of seeing in terms of what happens, moving on forward.
Yeah, I think there is a world I could see David's point coming to fruition, that I think San Francisco has to do something. I mean, between the off the field controversy, then just the roster is just awful with all these with all their overpriced contracts, and that there's talk of them, moving a lot of them away. I mean, Rafael Devers continues to be a gas bag up there in San Francisco. I mean, I don't know how much longer he's going to last up there with that ridiculous contract he's owed right now, still between the Sox and the Giants. Philadelphia probably has the most pressure, I think, as David said, though, about running it back with this core group of guys with Schwarber and Harper and all of them and whatnot. The Mets, I'm sure, will probably reevaluate Stearns going forward. And Nick says, both the Mets and Sox struggling. How long can this Yankees dream last for? I don't know.
Well, he's saying this as Sonny Gray has a no-hitter going against the Yankees. So,
Ben, your thoughts?
Thoughts of what?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I jinx it? Is that or baseball fans?
I think that's how it works around here. Yes.
Nick, you're Danhausen now.
That's all right, Nick.
I think Michael Kay did the same thing.
Danhausen.
All right.
That's too good. But
you're at least good for now, Nick. You're at least good for now.
Oh, man. But again, folks, once more, David Stearns, again, pulls the plug on Carlos Mendoza, firing him on Friday as the manager of the Mets. They will again plug in Andy Green, one-time Padre skipper for 3 seasons as the interim manager for the remainder of the season. Again, the Mets entering Sunday's games were 10 games under 500 at 36-46 and 12.5 games back of Atlanta for first place in the division and a full 6.5 games back of the final wild card spot in the National League, but also had endured a 7-17 month of June, but also was marred by a sloppy doubleheader with the Cubs, including a 6-error performance on a Wednesday night. And again, as we also said, though, Mendoza now becomes the 4th Mets skipper fired since 2018, which includes Mickey Callaway, Luis Rojas, and, of course, Buck Showalter, which has emphasized the perpetual instability in Queens despite ownership transitions for the Mets, who will try to right the ship as we go forward. With that, guys, from one managerial firing, GM firing out in Anaheim, California, as the LA Angels finally can Perry Manassian after 6 seasons of mediocrity, empty promises, and catastrophic long-term free agent contracts that have paralyzed the franchise's financial flexibility and also a really much rigid and awful minor league system. Perry Manassian was never able to properly recover or pivot the franchise after losing Shohei Ohtani to the arch rival Dodgers, and his panic moves, including trading away top-tier farm system assets at previous deadlines for short-term rental players, have left the Angels with one of the thinnest developmental pipelines in all of Major League Baseball. Even worse, perhaps, for Angel fans, Mike Trout remains under contract for 4 more seasons, but with ascending age and injury problems, Perry's inability to build a competitive squad around him has permanently shut the competitive window in Orange County. Even worse, guys, the Angels have the longest active playoff drought in Major League Baseball dating back to 2014. Under his tenure over the last 5 years, the Angels had no winning seasons, never surpassed 77 wins, and they also lost 500 games flat underneath his guidance as the team general manager. And even worse, the Angels minor league farm system ranks 29th out of 30 by Baseball America due to aggressive short-sighted draft and promote strategies that deplete organic depth, and also, more importantly, the ever ongoing issues when it comes to injury woes for the franchise. Ben, this was a franchise that obviously they are up the freeway in Orange County. They're the American League reps for Southern California, and they have just not gone anywhere in the last 12 years between all of the off-the-field problems with this franchise, with the stadium problems, the bickering with City Hall, the state Senate now passing a bill to change the name back from L.A. back to Anaheim or California, but also just the front office maneuvering has just left this franchise high and dry. And I mean, there is some good talent. Like, I do love watching Zach Neto play it short, but then it's Mike Trout and a bunch of guys playing out there. And there's just no real hope, sadly, for this Angels franchise right now up in Orange County. But Ben, your thoughts about Perry Manassian being shown the door after 5 dismal years in Orange County?
It's not surprising. I mean, I'm honestly shocked it didn't happen earlier. I think really after the Shohei, the departure of him, of course, moving forward, I think a lot of Angel fans really had it from there. Mike Trout obviously has been a great overall player for a long period of time, but the last several years, it's all about his injury risk. And it sucks because, for a while, it looked like he was going to be the franchise, that everybody was looking at, and he's still a great overall player, don't get me wrong. But now, of course, you have a lot of these guys, including Ohtani and Judge and all these guys that have kind of taken the keys. And, I do think that Trout deserves better to move forward, even though he wants to stick around there for some odd reason. But, we'll see what the Angels do next. I mean, they're a complete poverty. They're in, it sucks. I mean, because they're competing with, honestly, the Dodgers, in terms of, the back-to-back champs and kind of they're legitimately on complete opposite echelons right now, which I think for most people, it's like, what do you even say? So it's not surprising though. It just, it's really not much you can say.
David, I would say, though, that this is both an ownership problem and then a bad GM hire. Artie Moreno came in guns a-blazing when the Angels were sold by the Disney company in 2003. And then by 2005, they go through the first legal problems of the name change going to the LA Angels of Anaheim, that the city sued them and they lost in court because they kept the Anaheim city name in, they were in the lease of the ballpark, and then the ballpark's been a problem. The corruption case involving the former Anaheim city mayor with Moreno paying money for his reelection campaign. All that, I think, though, does bleed down from the top, along with the death of Tyler Skaggs and Nick Adenhart within, 10 years of each other between 2009 and 2019 is also a thing, too. But I think all that, though, does bleed through from the top down to the bottom when it comes to where the Angels have been, though. I mean, you can look back at the Pujols contract, the Hamilton contract, the Vernon Wells contract, the Anthony Rendon contract, obviously, and then not trading Shohei Ohtani elsewhere to get assets back when you could have done that. Rather, you let him walk for nothing. He goes to the arch rivals in L.A. He wins back-to-back World Series titles in his first couple of years being there, and the Dodgers are now here. The Angels are, nowhere, on it. And more importantly, David, And for those out there that again, don't quite get the geographic spot of Orange County, that is a marketplace unto itself. I mean, we all know, you all know it for where Disneyland's located though, but also that's got a very, that's got a hockey franchise there in a baseball market that wants to support a winning product. I mean, the fact that you can go to a Major League Baseball game at that ballpark for like $3 because of how the fan base has revolted against the franchise is really, I think, a telltale sign. But David, reaction though to Perry Minasian being fired by the Angels, and I think this was also too little, too late.
Yeah, this is the how I describe it. This all, I guess I would say, starts with Artie Moreno, and they will not be better until he's gone. That's number one. Then they need a new ballpark. I don't care where you build it. Build it next to Disney World. Build in the parking lot. It doesn't really matter at that point. By the way, the other thing about this cat, Minasian, besides being horrendously a GM, he's also famous because I looked up and I knew that he did something really dumb. In 2021, 20 picks. He drafted all pitchers.
Yes.
Only 2 of them made the majors. One guy wrecked his shoulder numerous times, Sam Bachman. The other guy, Chase Silseth, who was taken in the 11th round, made it. The rest of them, one guy was drafted in the 2nd round, was traded to the White Sox for Lucas Giolito, and then the rest of them are still in the minors or out of baseball. So, yeah, like I said, his brother sucks as the GM for the Giants. Maybe he had too. So, it runs, I guess, a family tree of just being bad in management. I don't know. But, the Angels will never be good until Moreno's out. That's how he started. To get better.
I concur. I mean, and I'm sure you guys have seen the viral videos of all the tarps off fans in the upper right field bleachers of Angel Stadium, and all they chant is "sell the team." And that the franchise has just done a bunch of shady business again, as I said, regarding Tyler Skaggs' death. That went to a court case in Orange County. Just again, the bad contracts given out though when it comes to Rendon and Albert Pujols and Josh Hamilton, and that it's been a cascading effect with that whole thing. And then I would say though as well, fellas, you think about that, but I think we think back though to spring training with the remarks by Artie that, our fan base only cares about safety and winning's on a top 5 priority, and it's being affordable to come to games. And I will say that is affordable to go to the games up in Anaheim, but also you're a tourist spot. Sadly, you're right by Disneyland. It's like literally
affordable when the team sucks.
Yeah, it's 5 blocks away from the ballpark. Like I can go there, go to a game, and go back to the park and finish off my day with a couple of cold ones at California Adventure. David, go ahead.
The thing that amazes me though, the top 5, he never said the word wins. Like if imagine you're a diehard Angels fan, like you don't like the Dodgers, you don't like the Padres, this is your team, and you hear an owner just go, I really, like you say, everything else is like, but wins, not whatever. And by the way, he's also the one who gave Suzuki, the manager, only a 1-year deal when he hired him, because if he gets bounced, he doesn't want to pay these guys during the lockout. So, yeah, it's a mess of a franchise, and it will be until Moreno is literally out, one way or the other.
I mean, I can only imagine what the price tag would be, and I know that the ballpark situation has been very much, wishy-washy. It came down to corruption charges from the FBI on the mayor at one point, Harry Sadu, who's in the brig for taking money from the Angels. They want to build it like on the property. They want to move it off the property somewhere in the city, somewhere in the greater Orange County or LA County lines. I've heard Long Beach has been rumored forever though. But Nick, what do you think about how not just the firing of Perry Minasian, but how this entire franchise has just found a way to shoot themselves in the foot, though, with just bad contracts, not trading Ohtani when they could have traded him in his prime, or even trading Mike Trout at one point, though he's got the full no-trade clause, and just how that fan base has just been left, high and dry for a place I do think could be a very great sports market, with how the NHL club has done great with the Ducks up there, saying that biasly, of course, but also how the Angel franchise could be a thing of itself, though, too, if they would just do things the right way for a change.
I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot. I think it's absolutely embarrassing when Artie Moreno came out and said that winning. What did he say? Winning isn't top 5.
Winning wasn't a top 5. Winning is not a top 5 priority in the for the fan base.
Which I mean, how do you feel about your own fan base if you think they don't care about winning? Like, what kind of fan base does
they care about $10 parking and $10 beer and $5 hot dogs?
I mean, I don't know what kind of fan base that is. How out of touch can you be? I don't really know any Angel fans, but I do know a whole lot of fans of other teams. And all of them would say winning, they care about winning more than they care about parking. Like, I can guarantee you that. So I don't know what he was talking about. In terms of the firing, I think the firing makes sense because the results have been bad. I mean, that's really all it is. If they made better decisions, they'd be this team wouldn't be such a dumpster fire. I mean, imagine having Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani on the same team and not even being able to make the playoffs. Like, that is like, if I were to put this in NFL terms, the closest example I could think of would be Stafford and Megatron on the same team. Two Hall of Famers, and for so many years, they were a disaster. But even they weren't this bad. So, yeah, fire everybody, I say, because everything seems like a mess.
Yeah, I mean, Zain, I think, Nick, yourself, and myself, David, I mean, we've all seen like very bad years of baseball with the Mets or the Sox, the Phils, the Cubs, and the Padres. I mean, I lived through a lot of bad years after 98 and then between 05 and 06, for example. But I think, though, Zain, that this one, though, I think hits a nerve, though, for baseball fans, that you've got that you had two generational star players on your roster and couldn't figure it out to make the postseason. You've got a entire community in the palm of your hand, though, who does not want to be associated with the Dodgers, up north. Now, I think, David, though, I get your point, though, but believe it or not, a lot of Angel fans actually would be Padre fans, too, because of the close proximity between the two cities, and there's never been really much of a rivalry, and that both teams go all the way back to the PCL days about 80 years ago, back in the 30s. And there's been a very, longstanding connection there. But, Zain, we've all seen bad baseball when it comes to bad ownership or bad GMs. But I don't think that we've seen one particular team strike a nerve, though, with every baseball fan in some way when it comes to having the talent that you've had, but also that you really put this kind of a slop of a product out on the field, though, for your fan base for 81 home games every year. But your thoughts on the firing of Perry Minasian by the Angels over the weekend?
I mean, again, it's another one of those situations where the fan base is fed up. The Angels are putting their hands in the air. They know that they've screwed up generational talent over the years, and they know the only way to hit the reset button is just to destroy everything. And he probably felt like he wasn't doing a good enough job, and clearly he wasn't holding himself accountable, and they just became more unwatchable on a regular basis. So this is more of a when not if situation, and they finally pulled the plug.
Yeah, and I think that this should have been done, like David said, regarding the firing of Rob Thompson by the Phillies. This should have been done earlier on. But once more, folks, to close out part of the baseball block here real quick, Artie Moreno, again, pulled the plug on Perry Minasian, the Angels GM, after 6 seasons at the helm. But again, Minasian not able to properly recover a pivot after losing Shohei Ohtani to the arch rival Dodgers. More importantly, again, Mike Trout still is under contract for 4 more seasons through 2030, despite age and also his injury problems. But again, it's just some staggering numbers that the Angels have not made the postseason since 2014, the longest active drought in Major League Baseball. Over the course of the 5 years that he was there between 21 and 26, no winning seasons, never surpassed 77 total wins for any individual season. And also, more importantly, their organizational depth is right now 29th ranked right now, due to the aggressive short-sighted draft and promote strategy that they have been using over the course of the franchise right now at this time. Guys, we'll move away, though, from all this, though, to, again, the latest rumblings involving the baseball lockout. We've had some proposals thrown back and forth. We've had some statements put out, though, regarding the draft being changed and always and a lot of other things going on, though. But with that, though, guys, current CBA is currently fast approaching its expiration in about 6 months' time. And the rhetoric coming from both Rob Manfred and Bruce Meyer indicates the two sides are miles apart on core systematic issues, with at least 12 teams plus currently not having RSN models right now for television. And the MLBPA also notes that the average career span of a player has now dropped to roughly 3.8 years. But again, so many changes, though, have also been proposed right now involving the salary cap discussion, a spending floor, this and that, penalizing more tanking franchises, but also draft day stuff has also been adjusted here. David, we're, again, about 6 months away from the deadline actually coming, though. But I still think even then, I know that you've got, from December until I'd say March to figure this out, though. Even then, I think we're running the risk of a lot of banter, especially now with the draft changes that they want to have happen. Salary cap, spending floor. We've heard about that, but David, with the latest round though of statements put out, though, any hope? What do you think?
There will be no baseball in 27, and the reason why I say that is Major League Baseball is not taking them seriously. By that I mean, look at this new thing with the draft thing. They want these guys to go play 2 years in college. No high school draft. So guys like the guys back in the day, the Bryce Harpers and Connor Griffins and Alex Rodriguez's would not have been able to play. The thing is, with a lot of these guys, like, for example, like last year, Eli Willits, who was the number 1 overall pick, he got an $8 million bonus. Now, the thing is, we don't know what these guys' lives are. We don't know if they're rich. We don't know if they're middle class, whether they, can't, rub 2 sticks together. But it's life-changing money. Like I said, here's a prime example. Connor Griffin just turned 20, got $140 million. If he didn't get that, if he was going by these rules, he would have been in some community college or playing somewhere. So, yeah, Major League Baseball it's just like, well, I think they've already said in their heads, we're going to do this lockout for a year, no baseball next year, treat it like the NHL back in 05, and then we'll have our salary cap and everything else. And I've said it before, I'm hitting with just like with Ben and everybody else. I hope everybody finds hobbies next summer. Golf, movies, vacations, whatever, because there's going to be no baseball. 0. This is going to be bad. And then once the lockout hits, watch the talks just evaporate.
Well, in fairness, I'll have to say it's easier to find hobbies during baseball season than, say, during football season. So,
since baseball's such a long grind of 6 months.
Right. At least, like, if I don't have sports, at least it's July. I can go to Atlantic City. I could do something. It's a lot better than not having sports in January.
Right. Too bad that imagine if the World Cup would have been next year. That would have fulfilled a lot of windows.
Exactly.
Probably.
That's a good point.
Yes.
Yeah, that would have filled some spots. Ben, I'll go to you on this one again. So many, proposals have been thrown out there again. We've talked about, increasing the luxury tax, adding a competitive integrity tax for the teams that don't spend the money, salary cap this, spending floor that. But like David said, though, now we're in a way wrenching the draft. And I think what David may have perhaps forgot to mention, they want to also cut the draft down by 8 rounds to 12, not 20, but go down to 12 rounds, plus the 2-year minimum for college. No more high school kids that could come out of it, though. Oh, man. Ben, your thoughts on where things stand, and it's only going to get worse from here, I think, my man, but your thoughts. What do you got?
Disaster. That's the word I talk about, because remember the last lockout we had, it was all about the PA and the MLB trying to go back and forth, and you always would think that when they would have a certain type of potential close to potentially something, there's something else, whether it was most of the time it was revenue, for the most part, in terms of them trying to figure out, on both sides of things. Well, yeah, I mean, they're obviously trying to, see about these deferral contracts and stuff, and it's all this stuff essentially that you just know for a fact that the inevitable is going to happen. And David, I know you obviously mentioned, for our show, like our show next year is going to probably be having a lot of more of online playing baseball, or talking about minor league baseball or college. It's going to be interesting for sure.
It'll be a massive hot stove show over the course of the winter, all the way till the lockout concludes.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a guarantee that there's baseball the following year either. I think that next year, is a pretty good. You feel pretty good that there's going to be one next year, but possibly the year after, maybe that could be like a half certain season. I mean, you just never know. You just have no idea. But yeah, it's not good. And I think most baseball fans are unfortunately waiting for the inevitable. So we just got to get ourselves ready for what's next.
The thing is, though, with this one, I'll be real quick on this. Unlike the 94 one, these ones.
David, I was actually just going to ask you about if you remember the 94 strike and then how it bled into 95. What can you tell us about that? The strike from 94?
It killed the Montreal Expos' chance to win a world title. It killed the team slowly. I mean, Lloyd, that was the beginning of the end, because after 95, when they settled, they literally traded the best outfield in baseball in one off season. Moises Alou, Marquise Grissom, Larry Walker, all were sent packing because they couldn't afford anybody. And they had a team. My God, Your staff was Pedro Martinez, Ken Hill. Your closer was John Wetland. God, they had so many talented guys. Sean Berry was really good. They didn't even have yet like the Vlad Guerrero of the world yet. They were so loaded. You go, they're going to win in another year or so. Darren Fletcher was a really good catcher back then.
Right.
That's what I said. When people watch that Netflix show, it was really good. But it killed baseball. It really did up there, and that was the slow thing. They never recovered. I know they were talking about maybe bringing it back. I don't think they'll ever get baseball back in Montreal. But
yeah. I mean, I was very young when it happened, but I remember there were a bunch of like highlights because obviously Tony Gwynn was chasing 400 that year and he fell 6 points short of getting 400 that season in '94. But I saw a lot of highlights where they had some old games during COVID. And I think they re-aired a game where he had a 5-for-5 game against Philadelphia, ironically enough, David. But there's nobody at Jack Murphy Stadium because the Padres are just coming off that '93 fire sale, though, when they dealt Sheffield away, McGriff away, Fernandez away. And I remember actually, before I go to Zain and then go to Nick, was that Wednesday I went to the game against the Braves. That marked the anniversary of when the Padres dealt Gary Sheffield to Florida for Trevor Hoffman. Right. And the Padre fan base was so up at arms at the Tom Warner group who owned the team at the time for the move that Trevor Hoffman's wife couldn't tell them or tell fans who she was because people were like rioting against the moves that were made by that organization. And that kind of in a way killed a lot of interest here until the '96 club went to the won the division title that year over the Dodgers in the final week of the season. But you're playing at an NFL stadium back then with like 7,000 people being there.
Yeah. By the way, the Expos were 74-40 when the strike hit. I mean, they were. And Matt Williams was going for the home run record. He had an unreal year, and then everything just ended. So a lot of bad memories there. But like I said, hasn't happened since, and there's been ugliness. But as I said, people, like I said, the younger generation of these Gen Zers, like I said, like baseball, you're going to find out what's going to happen. A lot of them will just be like, I'm going to a brewery, winery, golf. They'll find options.
Which I think, Nick, is a good segue that this has always been the one baseball's track record, that you always go a number of years and then you deal with this stuff happening. I think, like David said, we had 94, we had 21-22. I think, David, you might have to correct me. I think if we can go back to 1978, I think, where they had another strike, I want to say.
81. That was
81,
the half
they had
season.
a strike. They did the minor league split season format. And I think, Nick, that in a way, though, drives people away from the sport, that you don't have any consistency when it comes to labor, to labor negotiations. And you're always like in the stop and go cycle where maybe it wipes a few games out like it did in 21-22, where they wiped out the first 2 weeks of the season. But I think, though, DiMar, with where the game has gone, though, with, fan interest and, the Dodgers winning back-to-back World Series titles, but that, all the data shows that the game is like in a good spot. This kills any good momentum for the sport, though. If you wipe a full year out or a half year out next season, or even as Ben said, maybe beyond that, you're really, I think, going to be hurting here, especially especially too, to rope in the Padres. You have a franchise, guys, being sold come Wednesday, if reports are true, for $3.9 billion on the eve of a lockout season coming up in 27. And like Nick said, though, you can find a way to, to fill that summertime slot, or go to the casino, go to the beach, go watch other sports that are in season, like soccer is for me, for example. But Nick, your thoughts, though, about where the lockout currently is, but also all these changes now to the draft, salary cap, no salary cap, but also, Nick, from your perspective, though, how much, though, does the never-ending circus of play a few years, have a lockout, kill fan interest in a sport like baseball that's been dying for quite a long time here?
Well, I think it depends on how long the lockout lasts. Like we had a lockout in the 2022 season, yet we hardly remember it because it only wiped out like a couple of weeks of the season. It's not
and by the way, they made up all those games at the very end of the season when the season went to like early October. Yeah,
it effectively didn't matter. And if that can happen again, then it's not that big of a deal. So if it really just depends on how long the lockout is. I don't know if the season not happening will necessarily turn off young fans that much. I'm not really that convinced of that. I don't think that not having a sport for a season or for X amount of time means you're
Yeah.
not going to like it necessarily, because that can go both ways. On one hand, it could turn people off. On the other hand, it can make you realize how much you like it. Like, let's say, God forbid, there was a lockout in the NFL and we didn't have football in September. You think that we're just going to be turned off and not watch the NFL anymore? No, we're going to appreciate it even more if it comes back. So I think that could be kind of a double-edged sword.
Definitely.
I think the biggest issue, and I don't think this necessarily makes baseball less popular, but it is bad for the league in terms of PR, is the fact that the Players Association and the owners are constantly fighting and can never
every other year, it feels like.
Right. I mean, they had a lockout just 4 years ago. It feels like we just settled all of this. And the reason is because baseball has the strongest players union. That's the reason why that this constantly happens. And that can be an issue for the sport. I mean, look, not having it, the potential of a lockout is always bad for any sport, because that just means they lose out on money.
Big time.
I don't think it necessarily, like, in terms of like turning off young fans and people aren't going to watch baseball anymore, I just don't think that's true. I think it really I think baseball will always be somewhat fairly popular regardless. But it's just bad for their PR in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think, Zain, that's a good point, though, that it's bad for the PR image when it comes to, you play for 5 years, you stop, you've got all this internal civil war fighting going on. And I know, Zain, that obviously that it's a bit unnerving, I'd say, though, as well, which also, as I think has been said, though, that now that the league wants to have a 5-year limit on free agent contracts and other restrictions, including no more deferred salary going forward. But Zain, how about your thoughts about where you feel right now about the potential lockout coming up and what this might mean for the future of the game in 2027?
Well, it's tough because, I'm not going to say who said this because I don't want to speak out of turn, but I've seen a lot of different analysts say the same thing, that baseball just has not adapted to the younger generation. And
Agreed.
I've told you this, Callan, both on here and in private, that I have a better time going to baseball games in person than I do watching it on TV. It's something about the game that I just prefer. And I think when you put the lockout in real perspective, the people that it's hurting the most outside of the players and outside of the teams and outside of the, I guess, stakeholders, season ticket holders, what have you, it's this younger generation that lives online and wants new content to watch. And to be fair, I don't think the MLB has done a great job of catering to not just the casual fan, but also just the younger fan in general. To whereas, I think as much as I'm a casual NBA fan, the NBA does a better job than that. The NFL does a better job than that. You could argue that in some instances, hockey does a better job than that. The UFC does a better job than that. And shoot, even soccer right now with the World Cup is doing a better job of trying to bring in as many people as possible. And I feel like Major League Baseball continues to miss the mark because A, it's simply not easy at the moment to access the product, number one. And number two, when you're a star-driven league and you're not tapping into that as much as possible, it's going to turn people away. And I certainly think the lockout is going to do more harm than good, 100%.
David, I wanted to go to you real quick, though, too, before we get to the top of the hour and take a quick commercial break here to pump up Tom Albano's show for Monday. As I said, though, the Padres are, again, being sold to a new ownership group. Mm-hmm. We believe by Wednesday, when they have the owners meeting of the finance committee and the community to approve the sale to Jose E. Feliciano and Kwanzaa Jones, they would make history as the first Puerto Rican-born owner and first Black woman to own a franchise. But I also, again, David, have said, though, a $3.94 billion, call for what it is, a $4 billion franchise sale happening on the brink of a lockout. David, how do you feel about that whole thing going down, though, here in Southern California, seeing a franchise being sold for that big of a price tag, but this closer to a lockout happening?
I think it's business. I mean, what was it, a couple of years ago? The Orioles sold everything for close to $2 billion. So it just, that's why I said business is doing good. That's why I said it's like I said, I guess it's just the mark of San Diego being close to LA. And yeah, I mean, if like you said, I'm not saying he's going to, but if a team like Cohen sold the Mets, he would make maybe double what like he is. That's why like even like Moreno, we were talking about him earlier.
Yeah.
He bought the team for $183 million. He's worth $5 billion, may I add too. He could probably sell the Angels for $2 billion easily, and or maybe even close to $3 billion now. And that's why I said these guys sell. It's great for the owners. They're just like, thank you, Padres owners, because they're going to cash in on their situation. By the way, real quick, what Zain was talking about too, of other thing that Major League Baseball's missing out on, like I said, being in Philadelphia, they're down over 2,000 seats per game, and they asked fans, "What's the problem?" And they said, "Affordability."
Bingo.
Like family of four cannot. If your family of four goes to a game anymore, you're spending $500 to $700 for a regular season game, and it's just like they're outpricing everybody. That's the problem with all the teams.
Yeah, Wednesday night I went to the game against the Braves, and I got a ticket in the upper level in the Sun for $20.
Right.
I'm like, I remember these days when you can get a ticket for $20 when we were terrible, like 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Now you can't get parking for $20.
Well, I take public transit, which public transit for me is like $5. That's it.
So I'll be real quick, and then we can flip it. Next topic here. Pirates are in town this weekend. A cheap ticket and parking, because Nick just mentioned it. Before you even walk in, $86. Cheapest ticket's $55. Parking is $31 in Philadelphia.
My goodness.
And by the way, how good are those seats?
Upper level.
Yeah, so I'm gonna I just don't.
Lower level is about $200 a ticket.
I can't imagine spending $86 to sit in the nosebleeds of a June baseball game,
right?
Involving the Pirates. Like, how is that worth anybody? How is that worth it for anybody?
Yeah, I mean that went to my point though about Wednesday evening game, 5:40 local time against Atlanta, best team in the National League. The Padres going for a sweep. I was on checking checking Tick Pick and SeatGeek, $18 tickets, $19 tickets to sit in the upper right field bleachers. I'm like, I'll go do it. And then, the only thing that was expensive that day was 2 beers and pizza. That was it.
Yeah. I mean,
the food was more than the ticket and me going to and from downtown.
Yeah. By the way, Nick, if you want also expensive tickets, talk to Ben with his Red Sox. I mean, lower levels are like $250 a ticket. Yeah.
No, well, look, the Knicks and the Yankees are like ground zero for expensive tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine getting. I wonder how much tickets behind home plate at Yankee Stadium.
Oh, they got to be about as much as a World Cup ticket on.
I bet you 5 figures.
I think I'd suffer a stroke if I saw it.
Oh shit!
And half the people that get Yankee home plate tickets don't even stay in there. They literally just buy them, and there's a club that they go into and just
and then same thing happens out here with the Padres whenever they play the Dodgers. I mean, I made the mistake of going to a Dodger Padre game after my birthday back in May because I wanted to watch Ohtani pitch in person. I think I may have spent like $70 for a ticket in the same exact spot I was in on Wednesday when they played the Braves. And then, people buy just for that series, everybody that I know that's a Padres season seat holder sells their tickets for like 3 times, 4 times more, and all the Dodger fans always buy them, as we were kind of saying here.
Yeah.
By the way, Nick, just real quick, the Legends Suite of Yankees tickets range from $400 to $5,000 per ticket.
Right behind home plate.
I'm looking right now. The tickets behind home plate it's mostly in the hundreds. It's not in the thousands. There's 828 that looks like, or 845 looks like the most expensive.
Well, the thing is, with the 5,000, I was looking at it, you can go to the Legends Suite Club, so you get 5-star dining, private lounges, and premium amenities. So I guess you meet Hal Steinbrenner. I don't know.
Well, no, I think they have like a little suite, and you can get food and things like that.
It's crazy. The prices.
It is.
It really is.
By the way, I just checked for the Padre game when they play Arizona because I have a former teammate who pitches for the Diamondbacks in their bullpen. Cheapest seat for July 8th at 7:10 local time for a Trevor Hoffman bobblehead will cost you $25.
That's how it should be.
That is the upper level, but for like the lower level seats, I'm just going to click on one real quick in section 22D, row 9, $115, 9 rows up from home plate.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I mean, it's literally crazy with where where ticket prices have in fact gone, sadly, at this rate. With that, though, guys, real quick, step into the cage every Monday with Tom Albano as Fight IQ breaks down the world of combat sports with the precision of a championship game plan, from analyzing ground control at PFL events to breaking down the technical mastery of the world's best strikers. We cover the technique, the drama, and the business of the fight game. If you want to understand the IQ behind the world's most dangerous athletes, Tom has you covered every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific time, only on the Empty the Bench Network. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/ETB Network. So please go ahead and do so there. Guys, real quick, before we talk some football, I think, want to make a quick announcement that Nick Morrison and I talked about this briefly on Wednesday. And if you folks follow Press Row, you know that we had David Sampson, who was a former president and GM at one point of the Expos and the Marlins. David made a very rare appearance on a podcast not named his own or his own network, and he documented that he doesn't really do a lot of appearances on podcasts like us here on ETV, for example. At the time, he was taking care of his daughter, Kira, who was suffering from cancer. David made the announcement last Wednesday morning before Nick and I took the air for Press Row that Kira had passed away in the overnight hours from her disease. David took the week off from his programming and whatnot, and the foundation that he's a part of has raised nearly $60,000 over the course of the time for treatment, and also, of course, to help raise awareness regarding where things have been with that illness and with the disease. Again, obviously, we know that David kind of has a bit of a bad rap though with Meadowlark Media and stuff. But Nick D, I don't know if you got a chance to talk about it at all. But maybe any thoughts to offer for David Sampson and for the family's loss over the course of the week.
I mean, I just can't imagine what they're going through. That's awful. I didn't even know that his daughter was sick. I just saw that the announcement on Twitter. That's just awful news. I don't wish that on anybody. I just can't imagine what he's going through right now. I know that he was on Press Row not too long ago. But yeah, I was really that was just awful when I saw that.
Yeah, Ben, obviously, baseball fans, will know Sampson, of course, for his time in Montreal, the Marlins winning in 2003, and then, of course, the fire sales a couple times over. I mean, Ben, it's tough whenever that this stuff happens. We talk about this stuff every so often, like we did with, other people who've passed over the course of the year. But maybe, Ben, any thoughts you'd like to offer?
Yeah, no, it sucks. Obviously, wish them well in terms of what they're going through, and it's tough.
Yeah, David, I lost a grandfather when I was very young to cancer back in 2002. And you and I know very well from our time working in sports, and also, in the American Hockey League or the NHL, how they dedicate the one night a year to cancer survivors and cancer in general. And I don't know. I think what gets lost a little bit is that what people may not know, the team I work for here in San Diego, they just had these new LED boards put in around the rink that they're all digital ads. They're not stagnant. They can do different things on them, like it's another jumbotron. They had fans write in names of people that they've lost to cancer for our home game back, I think, in January. And literally from where I sit in the penalty box, kitty corner from me in front of the Gulls bench was my grandfather's name on a I Fight for card on the dashboards, and I got very choked up before the game, and then I went and actually got a picture with it after the game was over, and it really hit home with it. But David, maybe some thoughts. Maybe you can probably add some more insight maybe about Sampson's time though with the Expos and Marlins, but also obviously for sadly his family grieving the loss of their daughter.
Yeah, 28. She had brain cancer. It's what's it called? Glioblastoma? Is that what that's what the term's called? Just burying your kid, you don't think that way. I mean, usually your kids bury you, and it's the other way around this time. It's brutal, and I was 9 months. Yeah, it's everything about it is awful. I mean, that's the only thing I can really say about it. I know he wasn't involved with baseball. He was doing, like he said, a podcast. I don't think he's in the front office stuff anymore. But yeah, that's some heavy stuff for him and his wife. Awful.
Zain, any thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a horrible situation. You never want to see that happen to anyone, especially someone of his stature, and just I can't imagine what his family's going through.
Yeah, especially like David said, though, it's supposed to be us, the kids, who bury our parents or bury our relatives, and not the other way around, where they're burying us at the ages that we are. But I just thought that we should touch base on that. Again, I know that we did on Wednesday morning when the news broke in the wee hours of it. But again, wishing all the best from ETB to David and his family. Again, for David to take the time to join the press row months ago, and then as he made a mention that, he was going traveling back into the city to go and see his daughter after our interview. So wishing the Sampson family all the best going forward. With that, guys, to all things in football, we'll start off, though, guys, with another chapter in the tortured book history of Brendan Sorsby. In wake of the latest involving the cancellation of the NFL supplemental draft last week, though, but now, though, gentlemen, the CFL up in Canada has also denied him from playing in the CFL in wake of what, of course, has gone on per various outlets, including Yahoo Sports, as both the NCAA and international transfer protocols block the cross-border athletic transfer, sparking more debates on player freedom of movement, but also about how leagues gone about doing this. Nick D, obviously, this has been a very much chaotic, circus, for good, bad, ugly, or whatever it's been, and obviously I've been very vocal, having worked in college athletics, as is David and Zain as well, about, those bylaws are very much, in plain writing about, 10.3, that you can't gamble if you're part of the athletic department for a student athlete, and that they can, dock you a certain percentage of your season if you go beyond a certain threshold of money when you gamble, whatever. And then obviously, $90,000 and 9,000 bets. But obviously, though, Nick D, now the domino effect is more real. It's the letter from the NFL front office to Sorsby's legal team. They kind of, rat him out for, it 3 days before the deadline. You did this, it's, like laying it all out, though. Now, though, Nick D, here's the CFL, where I thought maybe he could have gone to at one point. I think we all may have agreed, though. But Nick D, now with this door closing and some rumblings of the UFL now being the only option, what do you think now of Brendan Sorsby's future when it comes to playing football, with almost every avenue now being blocked off?
I don't know if every door is going to remain blocked off. It seems like in this whole saga, he's like allowed to play and then not allowed to play, just like it was with college football.
Right.
My biggest concern is, if I'm Brendan Sorsby, is if I can't play this upcoming year anywhere, which I don't think will happen. I think he'll be able to play somewhere.
Yeah, where that is, who knows? But yes.
But if he can't, well, what will that do? Because not being able to play for a whole year in his position can absolutely be devastating to his career. So I don't know. I was surprised the CFL ended up blocking Sorsby from joining them. You said the UFL is still...
Yeah, front office sports is saying that the door might not be fully closed, but I think that they're the only option right now he would probably have, unless he wants to go to indoor football. But they are at the end of their season right now, with one more month to go in the regular season.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I think he'll end up being able to play somewhere, but it looks like he can't join the supplemental draft. He can't play college football.
There is no supplemental draft.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. There's no supplemental
they
draft.
are saying no thanks. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I would say I think he's going to end up playing somewhere, and he'll be able to he'll play flag football. Do they have any leagues in Europe?
They might, but I don't know if the NFL has anything to do with them anymore. Sadly, all I can think of, though, Nick D, would be the AF1, which is one of the arena football leagues, or the league that I work in here locally in town, in the indoor football league. But again, we only have about a month left of our regular season.
Well, look, I could see him playing arena football, something like that. I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is he's just going to be able to, he'll just take what he can get. And if that's something like the UFL, arena football, something like that, that's what it looks like he's gonna end up
Could you imagine a whole year of open workouts for scouts during the course of that downtime if he's not able to play anywhere?
Yeah, look, I think that he's good enough he's clearly good enough to play in the NFL. So I think somebody will eventually take a chance on him. But who knows? Like his career right now is in limbo. He can't play in college. He can't play. He can't play in the NFL. He can't play in the CFL. Well, where is he going to play? So I think it'll be somewhere, but it can be devastating.
Yeah, I think it could be. And by the way, per what Nick Morganson found, per the UFL's co-founder Mike Rapole, the UFL is a league of opportunity. So maybe that door won't close or be fully shut yet at this rate, but that is at least one option. But Ben, Nick D's right though. This whole thing has been so weird. Obviously I approached it though from my time, of almost 15 years in college athletics of D2 and D1 here locally in San Diego and whatnot, and reading off the bylaw on my show or Press Row or whatever, and even on here a couple times that, that's just where the mandate is when it comes to college. Then though the NFL says no thanks for the supplemental draft, that's one thing. Mm-hmm. And then the CFL all of a sudden says no thanks. Now with the UFL maybe still being that last glimmer of hope, maybe he'll get in though. But Ben, this whole thing has just been very much like Nick D said though. It's like one day he can play, the next day he can't, then he can't, yes, no. Like we keep flip-flopping here. Like what's the actual ruling supposed to be? But Ben, your thoughts now about seeing the CFL now blocking off Brendan Sorsby for the time being?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really surprised. Obviously, the supplemental for the NFL didn't want to let him in, and I think a lot of the leagues around decided to, not follow suit, and I think for the better. So I'm not very surprised about it, and hopefully he, figures it out himself. Obviously he's probably going to be, not around for a while, playing because they don't want him to do it.
Yeah, David, I think, though, what was polarizing in the letter that I kind of paraphrased on Press Row on Wednesday was reading the part that the NFL basically said, that would you be able to adhere to the anti-gambling measures that the NFL has in place? College is one thing, but, of course, the NFL, with all the money coming in from the sportsbook partners out there, obviously that'd be a very tough ordeal. And I think that you, me, and Ben and Tom on last Sunday even say, could he perhaps be drafted, in the draft, that they actually held the draft over the course of a summer. And I think we all said maybe not. But I think, though, David, that obviously there's no draft for him. The CFL's now saying no. If Nick Morganson's right that the UFL may give him a chance, then so be it. But, David, another weird curveball thrown here, my man. What do you got?
Well, I love that the NFL says all this stuff, yet, like you said, they're sponsored by FanDuel and DraftKings and all
right.
Gambling stuff. It's so hypocritical. I think with Sorsby, he's got two options. UFL, and hopefully some maybe a bad team takes him, and then he goes to the NFL. Or he sits out a year, and some team looks 6th, 7th round. What do you think? Well, we need a quarterback. Let's give him a shot. Like the Cleveland Browns type of vibe, where it's like, we'll just have a bunch of, that type of thing, where they, some team will take a shot of, like you said, he's got a really good arm and everything else, but probably his best bet if he wanted to play next year would be as the UFL. And some team is really bad, needs a quarterback, will probably take him. And, you sign him a 1-year deal, and it's like, okay, let's show us what you got. And then you go from there. But the NFL is definitely making an example out of him.
Yeah, and I think, Zam, it's a good point that the NFL's, that the poster child now for gambling is now Brendan Sorsby. It's no longer Calvin Ridley, who got that half season suspension a few years ago when he gambled.
It was a full season suspension, right?
Or he got a full season suspension when it came to him wagering when he was with the Falcons. But I also, Zan, wonder, though, a little bit with what David said, though. Let's say he doesn't get picked by the UFL, or doesn't, or as, Nick D may have said, that's a whole year of him doing open workouts or stuff. Why would I also feel like, though, Zan, that might be the time away, while you're doing your workouts, to do it the right way and take the full year for gambling rehab and not do 35 days like last time?
I think he will do that eventually. I just think I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt partially and say that I think he has the wrong people around him. I don't know who said people are, but you could just tell. Like, everything is kind of forced. He hasn't really made any public statements besides the one. No one's interviewed him. Like, it's very interesting. Like, I don't think we really know what's inside his head besides the people who are really close to him. Like internally close to him.
So, yeah, we will we'll see where things are at with that story again, folks, with the CFL now saying no thanks to Brendan Sorsby when it comes to him potentially playing in any of their 9 marketplaces in the Canadian Football League, who, again, already had their season kickoff just a few months ago, if not recently. Guys, from all things Brendan Sorsby, all things Brandon Ayuk, who continues to be an absolute gas bag, too, up in San Francisco and Santa Clara. Also, by the way, Nick Morrison writes that his lawyer, Jeffrey Kessler, is feeding him bad information and would rather fight than get him better in the mental headspace. That part I agree with, where I said,
well, I mean, it's his lawyer. His lawyer has to fight for him, not make him better mentally. That's his therapist's job.
Or as I said, go take that full year in gambling rehab while you're working out to get your career back on track come 2027 at this rate. But with that, guys, back to all things Brandon Ayuk, though, again, guy, I mean, this story has just been getting even, I think, more worse with, again, as I believe we may have reported on the Lounge, and I think on Press Row about a week or so ago, that Ayuk has an active arrest warrant in Santa Clara County for reckless driving. And I believe, I forget the actual charge, but it's like, doing donuts, revving his engine, speeding way beyond the speed limit in certain neighborhoods around Santa Clara County. Of course, guys, he came to the limelight, though, during the season last year, where, again, he had sped by the stadium where the Niners play in Santa Clara, and then, of course, flipped it off. And, of course, has been very much touting he's going to be a Washington Commander very soon while the Niners still have his contract. Nick D, I don't know where to go with the story, man, but I think it's just getting more and more deeper, or it's like getting like from bad to worse almost with how Ayuk has acted towards the franchise in San Francisco, even to himself, I'd say, with all these ridiculous IG live videos he's been doing from his vehicle, the driving issues, and more importantly, kind of in a way talking out of place when it goes to that you're not playing for Washington. You're still a 49er. And to quickly clarify, he has a misdemeanor for exhibition of speed, which again involves donuts, zooming through stop signs, or doing a lot of reckless endangerment when it comes to driving. But Nick D, if we thought Sorsby was one thing, this story I think is a lot worse.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a lot worse. I mean, misdemeanor exhibition of speed. I don't know what that is exactly. Misdemeanor exhibition of speed.
He was caught on video racing behind where the 49ers play, doing like 100 miles an hour.
Then he flipped it off partially, but it also like he was doing donuts in like empty parking lots and reckless driving when it came to being way over the speed limit in certain areas around the county.
Who does he think he is? A Georgia player?
Or is he thinking he's Vin Diesel
or LaMelo Ball or something? But I think that it's honestly at this point just embarrassing for Brandon Ayuk. I think it's always embarrassing when players are just constantly trashing their current team. And I know that I saw that like he also like fired his agent and everything. And I think he's a little bit like Jaylen Brown. Somebody needs to take his phone away. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. If you're going to be in a public feud with the franchise, you'd think you'd have your own personal life intact, so there's no bad PR. But he's feuding with his team. He's feuding with the Niners while there's an active arrest warrant for him. It's just really bad PR. It's like, I feel like if I had an arrest warrant, I'd be a little more quiet.
So by the way, just to touch base, because we were all confused about what exactly he's charged with. So in most U.S. jurisdictions, exhibition of speed is classified as a misdemeanor, not just a traffic infraction. This means it can carry more serious penalties than a standard speeding ticket, even if you were not exceeding the actual posted speed limit. Now, at least out here in California, per vehicle code 23109C, this occurs when you willfully accelerate or drive at a rate of speed that is dangerous and unsafe to show off or make an impression on other people around you. This includes driving a motor vehicle on a highway publicly maintained and open to the public, engaging in a exhibition of speed. That means that you intentionally displayed speed or power in a way that could endanger the public or attract attention, and the act was done for amusement or to impress, not to just travel quickly, as maybe that is the case with that video of him going by the stadium. You do not need to exceed the speed limit, accelerating hard enough to break the tire traction, revving loudly, or doing a burnout or donuts can also qualify. At least in California, this also includes a fine of $500. 90 days in jail for a first offense. Most first timers avoid being incarcerated. You'll have your license suspended for 6 months plus 2 points on your driving record. Community service or probation, vehicle impoundment, and even insurance rate hikes. And these do actually differ, guys, from speeding, reckless driving, and street racing when it comes to what Ayuk has done. So that is a laundry list of ordeals right there when it comes to those charges, though. But Ben, it's one thing about, like Nick said, though, about the where he's at with his career, though. Like, if there's a public warrant for your arrest, I think you should kind of keep yourself on the down low and not be broadcasting it across your social media feeds, But Ben, your thoughts on this whole thing?
At least Jaylen Brown's not getting in trouble with the law.
No,
Sure. Yeah, nowhere close to this. Yeah, but Ben, your thoughts? What do you got?
yeah, no, he's crazy. I mean, I've talked about this on Gridiron Gurus too. Like, just complete, it's against the law. I don't know exactly what he's trying to do himself, but yeah, it's so bad. So,
Well, it's interesting because I was actually sending this out. He posted something on Instagram tonight. Now he's going.
My goodness!
It's about now. It's the NFL Players Union. So it's a whole thing there. Let me see if I can. Like, I'm just trying to read some of what he said. What? When members of the union that is in place to help players is lying, withholding information from a player on behalf of the team alongside a certified agent, that's some straight BS. And then it continues on, whatever else. So he's not saying what, but he did take a little poke, I guess you want to call it, at the players union. But it's on his Instagram tonight, as I said. So he's going after everybody.
Yikes. And David read the first part. He also writes in part, some players have no other place to go for information or help and are relying on the union to help them continue advancing in their careers and lives. I'm sure there are great members of the union, so this message does not pertain to them, but about the ones in my specific case. So, David, if you want to further your thoughts here on this story, obviously we just read off about what exactly he's being charged to in Santa Clara County. But my goodness, David, it's gone. I mean, this is going from bad to worse very, very, very quickly.
I will give him one little praise type of thing. Ayuk, at least he finally admitted what he was irked about. And then he finally said it was his agent. He then talked about how bad John Lynch was. Then he finally said about Kyle Shanahan. The thing that's crazy to me, though, is, which is what you talked about last night, he could sign with the Commanders for the bare minimum, which the Commanders can do, whatever it is. Just the amount of millions of dollars he basically is tossing away because he wanted to be out of San Francisco so bad. And the thing to keep an eye on if he does sign, look who plays week 6 on Monday night. The Commanders and the 49ers.
Oh, my.
Don't tell me he won't be jacked for that game if he's with Washington.
And I wonder if he gets booed. Is that game in Maryland or in Santa Clara?
I do not know.
I'll give you a minute to find it.
Okay.
With that in mind, Zain, how about your thoughts on this whole Brandon Ayuk fiasco involving him and the Niners and him wanting to so desperately be dealt to the Commanders?
Yeah, not a surprise. I mean, he's been acting irrational for months now. Again, it's only a matter of time until he does something really bad. So this is more so just him being him.
Yeah, that's San Francisco.
And I wonder if he gets booed by the 49er fan base for if that does in fact come to fruition.
He might need police protection. I mean, absolutely. Oh, he'll be public enemy number 1 in San Francisco that night if he's playing there on October 19th. Yes.
All right, guys, we have some time to fill real quick before we get to the bottom of the hour and get to the NBA block here. We do have one, I think, pressing question. Nick, I'll start with you from the other Nick of the network. Is this getting close to Antonio Brown behavior?
Antonio Brown.
I'd say yes and no.
No, I don't know. I just think it's different because also which Antonio Brown are you talking about? Because Antonio Brown got crazier post-retirement.
I'd probably say the same one who like ripped off his uniform in the end zone, like did a dance and then walked to the locker room with the Jets.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk hasn't done that yet. So I wouldn't say it's – I mean, I guess it's getting closer because anything that gets more diva-ish is
yes! Let's come back. Sweep the Yankees. Let's go.
Well, I would say that anything that gets a little more diva-ish is like closer to Antonio Brown, but he's not even close to that level, I would say.
Yeah. Well, Ben, like I said,
what just happened in
just for those
what just happened in box 3?
Red Sox just got 3 in the bottom of the 10th. They beat the Yankees. So Ben,
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, Ben probably went to go have a scotch.
Or he's going to run around the block.
Regarding the next question, I'm going to say no, and here's why I say no. With Ayuk, it's pure anger. He's angry at everybody.
Sorry.
With Antonio Brown, that was because Vontaze Burfict was the one who said hello to him across the middle and almost took his head off that time. And I don't think he's ever recovered since. So I think his is more playing issues and Ayuk is more anger issues.
Ben, what do you think? Perhaps Brendan Ayuk becoming the new AB?
Possibly. Drives around like a maniac. Super talented when he's on the field, but he's usually never on the field. So, yeah, it's very AB-like.
But I think it's different though, because AB strikes me as crazy, and like David said, Ayuk is more angry.
Yeah,
like AB Antonio Brown, like some of his behavior was inexplicable. Like, why would you take your shirt off during a game and run to the locker room? Brandon Ayuk hasn't done that. So, and this, what Brandon Ayuk's doing is not even that uncommon with NFL players nowadays. Like getting into feuds and all like these subtle jabs on social media. Like it's not that uncommon. Whereas Antonio Brown was in a class of his own.
True.
I feel like all top receivers are divish. I mean, if you look at the team, AJ Brown was with Philly. Like I said, you can go right down the list of guys now, and you would see most of them have that diva mentality.
For some of them, not
all, but some. Right.
Yeah, Zain, how about your thoughts here about maybe Ayuk's behavior becoming a bit too close or getting close to Antonio Brown behavior?
I don't know if I'd go that far yet, but it certainly is getting closer with each passing video he makes. I'll leave it at that. There's not going to be much more to say until a move is actually made, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I really wonder if Nick, if you're the 49ers, why would you want to grant this guy his request to get traded away from the franchise, right?
Well, trade him to a shit team. Do like what Bill Belichick did to Jamie Collins. Remember he sent it to Cleveland?
Oh, they sent it. Okay.
Do something like that. I mean, that's probably what I would want.
What team would take him? That's my question.
Cleveland. Cleveland would take him.
I think nobody. I think he is so toxic right now in terms of a trade. I think everybody's just like, nah. I even think the Commanders are like kind of like, dude, because they're probably going to have to talk to GM. Like, is your buddy okay? I don't know.
Well, don't you think though that like, I don't know. I think he's a good enough wide receiver to the point where the fact that he's toxic almost, I mean, it matters, but somebody's still going to want him. He's not like a below average receiver. He's not like Stephen Hill with the Jets. Like he's one of the better wide receivers in the league. So somebody's going to want him.
Watch him go to Arizona.
Yeah, he's exactly. Oh God!
If you want to talk about a shit team, then send him to the Cardinals.
And by the way, just because he's angry right now with the Niners doesn't mean he's going to remain angry in his new destination.
No, he won't. But the other thing too is he also had a major injury a couple of years ago. He tore every ligament in his knee. I'm just saying that's also a big glaring mark. But no, I think he'll be fine with. I think he'll be like kissing babies if he goes to the Commanders or so. It's like I'm away and whatever else. And I moved on stuff. But no, I don't think he's going to get traded. It'll be a release, and then Commanders will sign him if they do for the bare minimum.
Fair. Ben, what are your thoughts maybe about the future for Ayuk, and do the Niners actually grant him any requests when it comes to his future?
I think so. I mean, once he gets himself off the roads, probably. I think, as a player, and I talked about this on Gridiron Gurus in terms of the actual show, that, there'll be teams out there that, whether it's at training camp, that, teams are depleted. I don't know, like, in terms of what type of role he really wants to be in and in terms of how his game shape is. All I've just been hearing is just him talking on social media how he really wants to go to the Commanders. And so it's all about, like, does he really just want to say that because he wants to find a new team, or is he actually, like, ready to go in game shape because he hasn't played in a But I think the NFL also wants to take a look, just like they did with Sorsby, in terms of like all the stuff that's off the field, in terms of no matter what an athlete you are, how good of an athlete you are. And so we'll see. I do think there is a shot that he might play this year, but it's just a matter of when it would be, how many games it would be, and what team would honestly want to take him. I mean, I think the teams that would want to take him, the two that have been the most interested, I'd say, have been the Commanders and then maybe the Steelers. I could maybe see that fit.
That'd be interesting. Zain, any closing thoughts on this topic?
I mean, I really don't have much to add outside of what the panel has already brought to the table. But what I will say is it's just overall a very unique situation all around. And I think controversy sells, and that's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing, this will be the biggest, I think right now, the biggest storyline to follow as time goes on with the remainder of the NFL offseason. With that, guys, to what we have seen go down in the NBA, 2 massive trades go down as Giannis finally leaves Milwaukee for Miami, Florida, alongside Bobby Portis Jr., while also LaMelo Ball leaves Charlotte to head to Minnesota over the past couple days. The multiple-time MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, averaged 30.4 points per game, 11.5 rebounds, and 6.5 assists per game last season, despite having his bad injuries last season. And when healthy, LaMelo Ball represents an elite playmaking hub, averaging over 8.5 assists per game, but carries high structural risk due to recurring ankle injuries over the last 3 calendar years. Nick D, your thoughts on both these trades and which team looks like they got the better end of the bargain, the Heat or the Wolves?
So in terms of, you mean the Heat or the Bucks?
For both, which team
for both. Okay.
Got the better end of it? Yeah.
Okay, so I think that with the Bucks, it's a little hard to say who is going to win the trade, and usually it's kind of hard to really say who wins or loses a trade because there's so much nuance to it, especially when you're trading players for draft picks or prospects, because those the team trading for draft picks is in a much different position than a team trading for a player. So none of us really know yet. A lot of it depends on how smart Milwaukee's GM is and what they do with the draft picks. But look, I do think this, though. So when it comes to Milwaukee, whether or not they benefit from this, that's very much up in the air. In terms of Miami, I do think Miami, at least in the short term, is in a better position than they were last year. A lot of people are talking about how Miami Heat aren't contenders. But look, I don't think they're going to win the finals. I don't think they're going to come out of the East. But you know what? The East has been such a crapshoot in recent years.
Definitely.
Really, anybody's a contender. You never know what's going to happen. I'm sure they won't be a 1 seed, but any of the teams in the top 6 really have a chance. I mean, the East is where you have to throw seeding out the window. I mean, the 8 seed Heat team made it to the finals one year. I mean, like, I just don't think that you can just write them off, because in the East, you never know what could happen. I would have said the same thing about the Knicks just 3 months ago. So You really never know. The depth is an issue, but the fact that you have Bam Adebayo and Giannis in your front court is a pretty big deal. Yeah. And one player makes a really big deal in basketball. And I do think it's safe to say Miami is in a better position. Like, people are saying they're not contenders. Well, they weren't contenders last year either. How did that work out? They were around 500.
They were in the play-in last year against Charlotte, ironically enough.
They had to make it. They went to the play-in and they didn't make it. They didn't make it past the play-in. So I think Miami's in the short term in better shape. Milwaukee, I don't know yet. It really just depends on how this works out. Like, what the draft picks turn into and everything. Like, that's a little hard that's a little hard for me to say. In terms of the Timberwolves and the Hornets, I think that was really interesting, because to me, it said that the Hornets really don't think very highly of LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball's value will probably never be higher. And they looked at him and said, we're going to sell. And it makes a certain amount of sense that they did that because it seems like all the play-in teams, the sort of bubble teams in the East, are making these moves. I said I'm moving the goalposts. The state of college basketball is the state of the NBA is similar to college football when they're just firing their head coaches and paying massive buyouts. It's a similar type of thing in the NBA. I was just a little surprised that the Timberwolves got rid of what they did for LaMelo Ball, that they thought so highly of him. That surprised me a little bit, if anything. I would say, I think if I were to take a guess, I think Miami and Charlotte ended up coming out on top. If I were to take a guess, but it's complicated. It really just, some of it is just wait and see.
Ben, obviously, you were on with me and Nick Morganson when we broke the news of a trade happening last Monday on ETB. And, of course, you get kind of roped in, though, because the Celtics had so much, potential, interest in getting Giannis from Milwaukee. That would, of course, led to Jaylen Brown being traded, and, again, his name's been in trade rumors for the last several years, though, like twice in a matter of 4 years. And then, obviously, the Celtics don't or the Bucks don't take Boston's package offer. What was going to be offered. So, Ben, your reaction to both these trades is what? Between Giannis going to Miami and then LaMelo heading to Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Nick. In terms of the short term, I think it could be okay. I do still worried about Miami's shooting, though. You did lose Tyler Hero. You lose Jaime Jaquez Jr. You lost some shooting there, but I do think come free agency, I do think, whether it's going out and get a guy like a Klay Thompson or Chris Middleton, at least you got to get something because Devion Mitchell and Andrew Wiggins, that's really not going to help you a lot from your outside part of your game. I think perimeter-wise and defensively, I think will be okay. But, Giannis is obviously not made to shoot the ball from the outside no matter what. So I think Miami is going to be okay. I don't think that they're going to be up in the up echelon, with the Knicks and the Celtics and obviously whoever comes up. But I do think, of course, under Coach Spoelstra, and especially if we're going to get a motivated Giannis, it seemed like, he was really pissed at how the Bucks, was kind of just benching him kind of at the end of his kind of time there. So, and then, with the Bucks, I don't know in terms of what they're going to be doing, kind of what their outlook is. They obviously moved on from Damian Lillard a couple of years ago. Obviously, now you're moving on your perennial star. And now it's headline, starting five by Kyle Kuzma. So, but they might be trading on it from him too. I mean, between Kuzma and Miles Turner, the Bucks are, I guess, potentially listening to offers as well too. And then in terms of the Hornets and the Timberwolves, I thought that was very interesting because I think that just kind of came out of left field. That was just really was no build up compared to the Giannis trade. The Giannis trade was kind of just talked about. LaMelo going to Minnesota, I think is a very interesting fit. I think Anthony Edwards is obviously a guy that, loves being there, but I think he wants to have kind of a side piece with him. But I think also LaMelo Ball is a type of player that is not a player that's going to win you a championship. I think he's very like Trae Young. He's going to get a ton of points. Defensively, he's just kind of up and down. And, Trae Young also got traded not so long ago, a couple years ago. And like Nick was mentioning about a lot of these playing teams and these back-end teams, a lot of these type of stars, I think, are trying to go to other places to contend because they have a better chance of winning. And, the East, I think, obviously the Pacers getting Halliburton back this upcoming season. What do the Celtics, of course, do with Jalen? Well, obviously probably know within probably the next 48 hours, hopefully. And in terms of the Celtics pursuit of Giannis, I talked about this, Nick, with Callan, with you on Monday night. The Celtics just did not want to go till the end with Giannis, and I think it was because of Jaylen Brown in terms of they didn't want to obviously part with that. Shams, of course, now saying 4 first-round picks, kind of the overall asking price for him, and they did not want to include Hugo Gonzalez and Baylor Shireman. That was just kind of the deciding factor. Hugo Gonzalez is a really interesting type of player. Baylor Shireman, I could have been fine moving for sure. So to fully go into it, Miami, I did think became a better team. If they did not get a lot of shooting, though, I think it might hurt them. They're going to be losing Norman Powell come free agency. And then I think the Timberwolves could be a lot of fun. I don't know how good they're going to be, come down the playoff time, but I think they could be probably a 5 or 6 seed, possibly in the West.
Nick Morganson wrote in real quick that the Heat deplete the roster for Giannis. The team will not go far and could miss the postseason. 2 big minimum starting lineup. Who knows? Giannis will also miss some time, sadly, for injury at some point, which has kind of been in his DNA the last several years, which kind of sucks.
I'll go with this with Nick's comment. I do agree in terms of like they've gutted a ton of their roster. I don't see them not missing the playoffs because the East I feel like is still pretty wide open. And I think
wide open.
When if Giannis at least for the most part plays about the majority of their games, I mean Bam Adebayo, I mean basically carry them to pretty much a playing team. So if you have those two guys basically healthy and you have two guys that kind of average about 25 plus, you know, you should be able to kind of be at least the top of the play and maybe the back end part of like your top 6. But you know, you never know.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, it's not like it really worked out so well for them last year with the depth that they had, and they felt like they had to make a change. And all the teams in the East that are sort of that are like play-in teams, it seems like they're all making a whole lot of teams just throughout the NBA are making drastic changes. So, what did you really expect from the current roster as it's constructed? I mean, right now they're not in the best position, but like I said, the East is such a crapshoot; it's really hard to tell. I think they're probably a playoff team. I don't think they're the best. I don't think that they're the best team in the East, but you really just never know. You never know with this league.
Yeah, it's so unpredictable, especially out East. David, I mean, again, 2 big trades go down right after the NBA draft. Again, Giannis goes to Miami with LaMelo Ball going from Charlotte to Minnesota. David, a lot of movement here. What do you got?
All right, so let's break down the Miami deal. Because I was writing notes and the whole thing. So you look at Miami's starting 5, pretty impressive. You're going to have Giannis, Bam, Wiggins, Davion Mitchell, and Norman Powell got 20 points a game last year. That's why I think Tyler Herro became a little expendable. You get Bobby Portis coming off the bench. That was part of the Giannis trade. That was really good. Miami just needs to get some guards. They need to get guys, maybe minimum deals, if cap, whatever else. That they got to focus more on the guard one. With the Milwaukee side, I didn't mind what they did. They had to gut it. I mean, they got rid of the Giannis's and Damian Lillard's, the whatever you want to call it. So you pick up Hero, who's at 20 points plus a game. Jaquez is really good off the bench. Ware's a first-rounder, young. They got Miles Turner back, and you got 3 first-round picks. Now, am I expecting Milwaukee to make the postseason next year? No.
No way.
But are they going to be better? Yeah, I would say so. I mean, young guys, score some guys. You kind of do it that way and figure it all out. Now, in regards to the Minnesota deal, Narwa I looked at too. So now the new lineup. You got Ball, Tsumanu, who they just signed for about $110 million. You're going to have Anthony Edwards, Gobert, and Gene McDaniels. That's a pretty good starting 5. You're going to have DiVincenzo coming off the bench. Conley's off the bench. So that's really good for Minnesota. They're probably, I would say, that's a tough conference. Maybe 4-5, maybe towards more 4 in the conference, depending on what happens, everything else. In regards to Charlotte, I just think they're focusing more on Brandon Miller and Con Couple. I mean, because today they traded Miles Bridges to the Suns because he had 1 year left on his deal. So Charlotte's doing something where they're focused on, I guess, newer guys, younger guys, although they got Grayson Allen that seemed like he's been in the league forever. And I mean, they got also a first-round pick. But I guess Charlotte, like you said, they had 44 wins last year. Do they go backwards this year and go, like, say, 35-30? Oh. Maybe get in? I mean, you're losing a lot of scoring alone with Ball and Bridges. That's what I said. I didn't understand why Charlotte's doing it, especially the Ball one, because he had a lot of years left. But I guess it was just like they're going to a different route. I don't know. But Charlotte.
And I think the only big piece they got back, though, David, in that trade from the Wolves was Naz Reid.
Yeah. Naz Reid in a pick. Yeah, it was a bizarre move. It seemed like they just wanted to clear money out.
And Naz Reid apparently is rumored to potentially get moved again. There's couple guys in some of these trade packages, like Tyler Hero's name. Like, he still could be getting moved possibly, even though he's going back to Wisconsin, obviously where he's from. There's some guys, a couple of these moves that I'm like, all right, are they going to be in this or not? But I do think, most of those guys in the Milwaukee deal.
Here's the real quick thing on Sharks. I just took a look at their roster. Grayson Allen now is the second oldest guy on the team at 30. I mean, everybody on their team is 20s.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
I will say this is like what's Charlotte's outlook, because they seem like, especially after retaining Kobe White, I thought, maybe they try to run it back and maybe got some pieces with them, because they seem like a team potentially that could be dangerous for years to come. And they moved obviously on from their top guy, and then you move on from, Bridges, who obviously averaging some pieces. So I don't know what they're doing, but it doesn't look good.
I mean, you're building off a 44-win season. I mean, if a couple wins the other way, they would have been a 4. I mean, they would have been a 5 this year in the playoffs.
They gave us a lot of problems.
Yeah. So it basically just says to your fan base, we really don't care, or we're that stupid as management people.
Yeah. Zain, how about your thoughts again with, I mean, obviously, I think we saw the Giannis trade happening again. As I said on Cranium on Tuesday, I think that basketball fans got tired of Giannis and the whole flip-flop, like day by day, like I want to be loyal. Next day, no, get me out of here. Loyal, get me out of here. Loyal, get me out of here. I think we were more stunned maybe by the LaMelo trade because of what the Hornets, as David said, were building over the last couple of years, though, with him at the forefront of their offense. But Zain, your reaction to both these trades involving Giannis down to Miami alongside LaMelo Ball heading to the Timberwolves?
Yeah, well, I think Giannis for sure going to Miami. That's big for name value. And LaMelo Ball, I feel like at this point it's more of a depth piece, and I know they're going to build around him, but I feel like Giannis is the bigger deal just because Miami has continued to underachieve in recent years, and it's going to be interesting to see how healthy Giannis actually is, because if he isn't, it could be a long year. So
the chaos is just starting, though, when it comes to the NBA, when it comes to trades, and of course, free agency opens up on Wednesday. But again, Giannis to Miami alongside LaMelo Ball heading to Minnesota from Charlotte. Real quick, guys, World Cup update. Round of 32 kicked off on Sunday with Canada after winning their first ever match in World Cup history. In group stage play, beat South Africa from Los Angeles 1-0. Of course, Team USA will play Wednesday versus Bosnia and Herzegovina from Santa Clara on Wednesday night to kick off their round of 32. Obviously, gentlemen, a bigger field in the tournament this year with 48 teams. So it's a round of 32, then round of 16. Then, of course, it will be quarters, semis, and finals coming up in about 3 weeks' time. David, I know that you've been keeping eyes on this tournament as much as I have as well, and I'm sure everyone has in some small capacity, one way, shape, form, or size. But, David, overall thoughts as we enter the round of 32 and what you like, maybe dislike from some of the countries that are still alive or those that got knocked out?
Yeah, so I was looking at the tournament part. I guess you say the 32. I looked at 3 teams who could advance to the Elite 8: Netherlands, Argentina, and Colombia. I feel like their routes are a lot. Netherlands will have Canada, but I feel like what they got, and I feel like Argentina only has to face Cape Verde and then Australia, and then in winner Egypt won, and then Colombia's got Ghana, and if they win that, they got Swiss or Algeria. So I feel like those 3 have a easier pace. The one game I'm looking forward to, because I think it might be nuttier in the crowd than actually on the field, Mexico versus England.
Oh,
yeah. Yes.
Mexico versus where?
Mexico playing England.
Oh.
Where would that
okay.
be
Who's gonna outdrink who in that game, folks?
I just want to know where it's at, because that's why
I was just going to say where that would be.
Oh, let me check the bracket and see if I can find out where that's going to be. But Ben, obviously, you're in a host city, much like David is in Philadelphia. I know that I asked you last week regarding the the vibe around the city. Again, obviously the Scottish fan base came around. They outdrank everybody. I don't know if there's any Sam Adams left in the city, whatnot. But, Ben, your overall thoughts about the tournament, though, but also now that we get to the round of 32, where you think things stand right now, especially with Team USA trying to shake off that last loss, though, that happened against Turkey last week?
Yeah, no, I know obviously that wasn't, of course, the outcome that US wanted the last game, but I think it was all about the matter of getting the boys healthy. You obviously had a bunch of the guys that were missing. Obviously, the Bolorgan, I believe his last name, the guy at the front. He obviously was missing that game. Pulisic did play, though, I thought, for the most part. At the end, he had pretty fresh legs. Obviously, of course, coming off of a calf, which, of course, you never know about. And, yeah, just, I think that it's going to be a tough ride down the road, but I think that they could probably take the game another notch. And And like I said before, they're going to be staying on the West Coast as well too. So they're not going to be having to move around and stuff like that. If they do obviously move on. So in terms of the other teams, I think the team that really just seems like the clear favorites, the two of them are France and Argentina.
Agreed.
And Mbappe and whoever they have as well too, who had I think it was a hat trick the other day.
Yeah, Dembele had the hat trick over the weekend.
Yeah, and then Argentina, of course, headline with Messi. So I do think U.S. has a pretty good chance. I think Spain, of course, and you mentioned Netherlands, David. I think that's honestly one of my favorite crowds is the Netherlands. They just really
The Orange Army, yes,
the Orange Army.
Yep. Of course, they do a lot of their like chant calls and everything. That dance that they have beforehand is really cool. But yeah, no, it's been amazing. Like Christy mentioned in the comments, and this week, of course, now when you have the knockouts coming in this week, it just kind of adds just more of a added element to it. So hopefully US will be ready, especially by our show next week. We'll essentially see if they're still moving on or not.
By the way, David, Mexico-England would take place on the 5th in Mexico City at Estadio Azteca.
Oh my God, if England were to beat them there, oh boy, you have to literally would have to bring in everybody to protect them.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that would be in Mexico City if Mexico and England do face off, if they do get past Ecuador and the DR Congo, who again, they got in, Cape Verde got in, Ivory Coast got in, South Africa got in, like a lot of really good stories out there. Zain, maybe your thoughts on where the World Cup is at. Obviously, we're, now it's win or go home the remainder of the way. No more seedings of the group stage and goal differential. But Zain, overall impressions of this tournament now that we are now getting to the nitty gritty now when it comes to the knockout stage.
Yeah, it's outstanding. A lot of the matches have been really entertaining. The U.S. obviously had a heartbreaker in its final group stage game, but I think it serves as motivation knowing that now it's win or go home and there's no excuse. I mean, and there's still the chance that they could play on the 4th of July, and we'll see if they can make it happen. So
we'll see. Yeah, definitely. Again, Bosnia and Herzegovina will be Team USA's opponent on Wednesday from Santa Clara. Last word of the night for the show goes to Nick DiMartino about the World Cup.
Well, I've been enjoying the World Cup. I watch soccer once every 4 years. It's only the World Cup. That's the only time I watch soccer. I've been enjoying it, but I really don't understand it very well. So Colombia, last night I was watching, I'm sure you were watching too, the Colombia-Portugal game.
Yes.
And Colombia scored the goal, and it was called, and they were called offsides. Was that the correct call? I couldn't really tell.
I mean, to me, it looked like it was. I mean, I don't know if David was watching that game. I mean, it looked like it was from the vantage point that I had watching the game in full, and then whatever it may have, and maybe were they, and whatever the decision wound up being.
Yeah, I thought that was crazy, but I can't stand how, and now I understand it's only in the group stage that games can end in ties.
Correct.
I really can't stand how some of these games end in ties. Like I'm seeing some of the most exciting games, like Cape Verde and Uruguay last week, or Colombia and Portugal. These are crazy games, and they're just ending in scoreless ties.
I was gonna say real quick, Nick, and then I'll give you the floor back. Algeria, Austria had 2 goals in the last minutes of stoppage time, and the match ended 3-3. That game was pure chaos.
Yeah, and they're just ending in ties. It drives me freaking crazy. I mean, you can't go to a shootout. Like, I can't stand it. And the other thing is the timing of the whole thing. Nobody knows when the games are going to end. At least, like, if you watch football, basketball, hockey, the clock counts down. Everybody knows when the game is going to end. In soccer, there's one guy who secretly knows the exact moment the game ends. Everybody else is just guessing. But that one guy just has it. It's like, that makes no sense to me. I mean, do they do this? Do they do it the same way in the MLS?
Soccer is global as can be. It's the same way across the board.
I was like, what the hell is that?
So what Nick's pointing out is regarding stoppage time at the half and then at the end of the game. So they're factoring in +3 always at the end of the half for the hydration break that they take at minute 25 and minute 70 roughly. Then they'll tack on more for if there's an injury delay, like an actual injury, not, Shamu jumping out of the ocean, here at SeaWorld, for example, for all the flopping. Or if
There's a lot of that too.
Legitimate injuries, or if there is, maybe someone gets thrown out of the game for a red card or yellow card, they'll add a minute for that too, with all the delays when it takes that. So that's what Nick's getting at when it does get to that whole thing, when it comes to the whole stoppage time ordeal. But yeah, this has been, what an amazing tournament. Again, I think all the storylines, though, too, like we said, Cape Verde qualifies, Ivory Coast qualifies, South Africa qualifies, but then they go out in round one, though, to Canada here earlier on Sunday. Again, Team USA, as we have mentioned, again, will be facing Bosnia and Herzegovina on Wednesday from Santa Clara. Winner of that game moves on to Seattle on July 6th to face either Belgium or Senegal also in Seattle 5 days later. With that, though, gents, before we get out for the night, it is the flagship show that began it all. Please join Nick Morgeson and our good man Zain Bando for Empty the Bench every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific time, as they empty the tank on the biggest headlines in the sports world, from the NFL coaching carousels to college football playoff predictions and major sports business mergers. This is where the foundation of the network meets the current pulse of the industry. Don't miss the show that defines our coverage, only on the Empty the Bench network. Again, make sure to go and find us over at youtube.com/ETB network. And join Zain and Nick for ETB Sports on Tuesdays. Before, gents, that we put the chairs on the top of the tables and count up the register, we want to give you a look back at what we just witnessed over the last 2 hours inside the lounge. Tonight was also a reminder that in sports, the only reason, or the only real constant, is gravity. Empires fall, front offices panic, and the names on the back of the jerseys change overnight. We watch multi-million-dollar managers lose their keys in New York, a decade of front office architecture get dismantled in suburban Orange County, and corporate borders keep a kid like Brendan Sorsby from playing the game he loves the most. We also saw the absolute execution of the loyal superstar narrative as Giannis and LaMelo got packed up into moving trucks while the shadow of a lockout threatened to lock the gates on the game entirely in Major League Baseball. It's also easy to look at a night like this and get cynical, but also easy to see it as just business, just contracts, and just billionaire owners and disgruntled athletes moving chess pieces on a board. But when the glasses are empty and the neon signs are humming in the dark, what's left inside is not payroll metrics or luxury tax aprons, but also about connection. And the fact that no matter how messy the business does get, millions of us are still going to wake up tomorrow morning, check the box scores, check our parlay tickets, and care because we care, because these stories belong to us just as they belong to them. So whether your team cleared house, tore down the studs, or bracing for a lockout, you're always welcome here inside of the lounge. A huge thank you to both Nick DiMartino, David Weightman, Ben Cruz, and Zain Bando for handling the heavy lifting on the panel. And to those who joined in the live chat box, keeping the tabs flowing, we appreciate you, and keep the conversation rolling all week long here on YouTube and also via our social media feeds. We ask you to please stay humble in victory, silent and resilient, stay resilient in defeat, and remember that the scoreboards go dark, the bar stools are inverted, but the lights in the lounge never truly fade out. We'll see you folks back here again next Sunday to do it all over again between 6 and 8 p.m. Pacific time, and that is 9 to 11 o'clock Eastern time. But until next Sunday, gang, we hate to do it, though, but the lounge is officially closed until next week. We will be back with you folks next week with a brand new panel once more. Before we do, in fact, go, Nick D, where can people find MTGP this upcoming week with you and Johnny, or with you and maybe a fill-in host?
I don't know if Johnny can do this week. If Johnny can't do, I think we might end up doing it on Friday. Probably Friday morning will be MTGP. But just keep tabs with the social media with at ETB Network and at MTGP ETB, and we'll probably send out an update.
Yeah, and then for me, episode 96 will drop this week at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific, and it'll be live on Friday. It's my first live show moving forward, and then it's going to move to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern for me. I had a scheduling conflict on Thursdays, so we're moving episode 96 to Friday. Zanzinger Part 2 is also back this Sunday, and the next time you'll see me on here is July 12th.
And of course, Ben Cruz, you're all over the place with Gurus and Psycho. Where else can people find you here on the network?
Yeah, so obviously you guys can, of course, find me on Beakers 90. Post a lot of stuff just in terms of for this network, but in terms of show-wise, the Cycle with me, David, Nate Moore, Ryan Sui on Thursday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, and then me Grant Westmeyer, and Mike Rapillo. Grant will be out this week, so it'll be me and Michael this Friday at 7 p.m.
And of course, David, our good man for hitting from a cycle.
Yeah, him with Ben, with Nate, with Ryan this Thursday night. I know Ryan will be talking about the lollipop kid getting tossed tonight during the Yankees Red Sox game. But yeah, no, it's a fun time talking baseball with the gents. Absolutely.
And of course, folks, you can find me on Callan's Cranium on Tuesday nights at midnight Eastern on the East Coast for Wednesday mornings, 9 o'clock where I live out here in SoCal, and also on Press Row with Nick Morgeson every Wednesday from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. Pacific time, which, by the way, we do have Ray Clay, legendary Chicago Bulls PA announcer, joining us on Wednesday for a very cool one-on-one or a two-on-one interview come Wednesday. We're still working out the actual time for Ray's appearance on the show for the upcoming week. And also, you can catch me and Trevor, too, following Team USA's match on Wednesday for Empty the Pitch, where we recap Team USA versus Bosnia. And then you can come back and join us again on Saturday mornings to recap all things World Cup on Empty the Pitch at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time. With that, folks, for Nick DiMartino, Ben Cruz, Stephen Weightman, and Zain Bando, Callan McClurg saying good night from SoCal. We'll see you back here next Sunday. Till then, have a great week. Bye-bye.